breaking news! The Supreme Court is alive! Check it out.
Can you give me a reason to accept it, though? That's what I'm struggling and waiting for. What's the reason to accept the notion that Congress can hand off the power to declare war to the president?
Well, we don't contend that. Again,
Congress, as a practical matter, can't get this power back once it's handed it over to the president. It's a one-way ratchet toward the gradual but continual accretion of power in the executive branch and away from the people's elected representatives.
What you just heard was ultra-conservative Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch taking the steel chair to U.S. Solicitor General and Trump lover extraordinaire John D. Sauer in the case Learning Resources versus Trump. Oral arguments for this case were heard Wednesday, and not only is it on track to throw out Trump's stinky Liberation Day tariffs into an alleyway dumpster, it could also serve as the first real check from this Supreme Court on Trump's runaway executive power. At issue in the case is a fun little statute called IEEPA. Go ahead and say it with me now. IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977. Now, IEEPA created a set of actions the president could unilaterally take with regard to foreign commerce so long as he or she declares a national emergency. Now, it's important to understand that IEEPA was created as a check on the president's power. Before it was enacted, the president could impose sweeping economic sanctions or block international transactions without first declaring a national emergency. But now, John D. Sauer and the Trump administration are arguing that IEEPA's language allows the president to impose sweeping tariffs on virtually every country on the face of the earth in response to national emergencies like fentanyl and international trade deficits. But on Wednesday, Supreme Court justices pointed out that while IEEPA does give the president the power to, quote, regulate importation, nowhere in the statute does it say that the president can actually create the massive tariffs that we've seen.
Can I just ask you a question? Can you point to any other place in the code or any other time in history where that phrase, together, regulate importation, has been used to confer tariff-imposing authority? But that just shows the word can be used that way. None of those cases talked about it as conferring tariff authority. I understood you to be citing McGoldrick and Gibbons in those cases just to show that it's possible to say that regulating commerce includes the power to tariff.
I think our argument goes a bit further than that as an interpretive matter, because if you look at that history, the history of delegation...
Could you just answer the Justice's question?
The Supreme Court has often deferred to the president on matters of national security and foreign policy. But tariffs, more than they are a matter of foreign policy, are ultimately a domestic tax on the American people. They take money out of the pockets of Americans, many of whom are small business owners, and funnel it into the government's coffers. Only Congress has the power to levy taxes, not the president, a point hammered home by liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor and even conservative Chief Justice John Roberts.
Interpretation that he received
Counsel,
the strongest presumption of validity.
I just don't understand this argument. It's not an article. It's a congressional power, not a presidential power to tax. And you want to say tariffs are not taxes, but that's exactly what they are. They're generating money from American citizens, revenue.
Yes, of course, tariffs in dealings with foreign powers. But the vehicle is imposition of taxes on Americans. And that has always been the core power of Congress.
Now, Congress is allowed to delegate some of its responsibilities to the president, and that's what John D. Sauer is arguing here, that in passing IEEPA, Congress intended to give the power to impose tariffs to the president. But justices are arguing that if Congress wanted that to be the case, then they should have explicitly mentioned tariffs in the language of the statute. And even if they did, this whole thing becomes a slippery slope real quick. If Congress is allowed to just give its power to tax to the president, what's stopping Congress from waking up tomorrow and saying, listen, this whole legislative branch business, I'm getting tired of it. Mr. President, why don't you take over, bro? This is the point that Justice Gorsuch made at the beginning of the video. We still have to wait for a full decision, but as of now, it looks like the Supreme Court is going to deliver a substantial blow to the president and return some power back to Congress.